We are from Highland Community Middle School, and we are doing a project that involves interviewing longtime residents of Highland and surrounding area to find out what life was like back in the day. Today's date is September 28th, 2012. Today we are interviewing Pat Yanna at her home in Highland, Wisconsin. The interviewers are Courtney Yanna,
Ryan Minter,
Megan Winkus,
Lily James,
and Drew Drury.
what is your full name?
Patricia Ann Riley Yanna.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Highland, out, I don't know the address, but the Hidden Valley greenhouse where Tom Welch lives today. That's where I was born.
How did your family come to live in this area?
They came over from Germany.
Do you know where your family originated from?
Yeah, in sort of the northern part of Germany. And my folks, my dad came, his dad came from County Cork, Ireland.
What were your parents' names?
Thomas Kerwin Riley and Bernice Lamke Riley.
What did your parents do for a living?
Well, way back in the day, when I was born, it was Depression years. My dad worked for the WPA. He worked in Milwaukee, and then when the crash came, they came out from Milwaukee. That's why I was born at my grandma's house. And then as things progressed, Dad worked for the WPA. They built culverts and bridges and until times got better. Then my dad was a painter. My mother took in sewing. And then in later years she worked at the Badger Ordnance ammunition plant up at Baraboo. And then they retired.
Do you think they liked their jobs?
Well, I know my dad did. He liked painting because he has a couple of sons that still paint. And he has a grandson who has his own business painting in Mount Horeb. Tim, my son Tim. And so I would say that he liked it.
Did you have a garden growing up?
A huge garden. My mother used to can, so the basement looked like a picture. Anyway, her basement looked like a picture. You've seen pictures of old-time people with their basements full of the winter, stocked for the winter. And that was my mother's, like a picture. And peaches and berries. We picked a lot of berries. And often when I went home from school at noon, some days dinner was a bowl of berries and some homemade bread. And probably water. We used to have an hour every day when we left school at noon. And we always walked. No buses back then, for nobody. But when I was in the 7th grade, then that's when the buses start bringing kids to town from the country.
Did you have a garden when you were an adult?
I still have a garden. Not too big a one, but I have tomatoes. And this year I didn't get any lettuce, which was my favorite thing. It got too hot. So mainly that's a few cabbages. It's just fun to pets outside.
Did you have indoor plumbing when you were growing up?
No, not until I was probably a sophomore or junior in high school. We had the outhouse. And we took our baths with a wash tub. heated the water with a tea kettle, and we got clean.
Did you have a refrigeration?
I didn't have that either until I was in high school. We didn't even have electricity when I was younger, because we used lamps when I did studying. Most of that good stuff I got when I was in high school, so.
Did your family have a car while growing up?
Well, let's see. When I was probably a sophomore, my dad got an old Model T that he used for going to work. It was a small cab with a box in the back. He used that to go painting. And my girlfriends begged me, ask your dad if he'll take us for a ride. So three of my girlfriends, we went for a ride out around the old, I was used to be embarrassed about it, but it was pretty neat to take the country ride.
Did you have to share a room when you were a kid?
Yes, with my sister. I had one sister. And we shared a room and a double bed till I grew up.
What kinds of meals did you eat as a kid?
Well, my mom was a real good cook. She cooked potatoes. We always had meat, potatoes, and vegetables. And hamburger was mostly the meat we had because it was the cheapest. But they could make a lot of good meals with hamburger. And we had a lot of eggs too.
Where did you go shopping for groceries?
We had 3 or 4 stores in Highland when I was a kid. One was at the corner. I grew up the bottom of the high school street, across from the nursing home. And I had to walk a block down across Main Street where the Fillback Ford garage used to be a grocery store. So I had to go a block, and I was pretty young when I was going to the store, maybe 4 or 5. But we'd walk down and get either a loaf of bread or eggs or something. So it was real handy.
Where did you put your clothing?
We had dressers. Most everything was folded up. Or sometimes it hung off a door. We had hooks on the backs of doors.
Do you recall any prices for items like milk, butter, gas, a pair of jeans, shoes, or a dress?
Oh, milk was probably maybe less than 10 cents a quart. Bread, about the same, about a dime. And they were good big loaves and slices. Eggs, eggs for those women that farm. Eggs were not very much then, and they're not really expensive yet today. So some things have gotten awfully expensive, but a few things just never did.
Do you know how much gas was?
Yeah, we used to get 3 gallons for $1 when I was in high school.
As a kid, did you have any chores?
Dishes, scrub floors, help hang the clothes, because behind the clothes on the clothesline. Mainly scrubbing the floors. My sister and I each had our certain rooms.
Did you get an allowance for your chores?
Never. You were part of a family who did that.
What did you do for spending money?
Well, I used to go, for the lady that lived where the nursing home is, I used to go get her mail, and I got a penny. and I could buy a package of gum or a great big sucker, or there was lots of different choices for penny candy, so it's not too bad.
Like, what do you usually buy with the penny or whatever?
Usually the pack of gum, because you could get a pack of gum that had 5 sticks. What do you pay for gum today? About $1.50? And the gum is really tiny and thin. We used to be able to share a stick of gum, and each one had a good chew.
Did you have a favorite pet?
Yes. A collie dog that my dad gave to a farmer. And my brother Jack and I, to this day, never got over it.
Why did you give it to the farmer?
Because we lived in town. We were lucky to feed kids without feeding a dog that size. And so we gave it to a farmer who could handle a big dog like that.
What was the dog's name?
I don't remember. I don't even know for sure if we named him. We just loved him up.
How old was he when you gave him to the farmer?
Well, we just got him as a puppy, but probably only 6, 7 months. He was getting big. We couldn't keep a dog like that in town. Our house was pretty small. Too cold to keep him outside.
What did you do for fun while you were growing up?
Oh, we roller skated all over town. We sleigh rided on all the streets. We jumped rope. We played jacks. Played paper dolls. And sometimes in the summer we put on shows in my friend's garage for the nice older ladies that would come and watch us. And they would pay a penny a piece, and then we had some money to buy some treats. But those were fun days, simple days.
What did you play for indoor games?
Chinese checkers and regular checkers, cards, old maid.
Is there a Christmas gift that you remember getting as a child?
Nothing really special, but every Christmas when I was younger we got a new parka and a pair of mittens. That was our Christmas. And then we got usually an orange or an apple, maybe both, a few nuts. That was Christmas.
So you
That's where we got the board games, a family present, because we'd wear them out.
Did you ever go on vacations with your family?
Not with my family, but when I was about 10, my sister and I used to go to my aunt's in Milwaukee and spend a month in the city of Milwaukee, where she took us riding city buses. They had passes to get to work. So at night we would just ride all over the city so we could see the sights. And it was cooler riding than sitting home because it was really hot in the city. But it was fun.
Did you ever travel to Madison or Platteville or other neighborly towns as a kid?
I don't think I went to Madison until I went up there to work when I got out of high school. I didn't have nobody up there. We didn't go shopping. We ordered out of the catalogs, so I didn't even get to Richland Center till I was at least in high school. We didn't travel like today. how many have even rode on airplanes and you go all over, but we didn't do that.
If you had a TV as a kid, what did you do for fun?
If I what? Had a TV?
If you didn't
Didn't
have a TV.
Okay. Well, when our evenings were spent playing outside, we played Red Rover and hide and go seek, those kind of games in the summer. And then when I got into high school, there was a dance every Friday night. We had a town hall. There was a dance every Friday night, sometimes a couple because somebody get married. And the dances were the big thing. You met boyfriends, and all kinds of good stuff.
Did you ever have scarlet fever, chicken pox, mumps? What?
Mumps or measles, you're right.
I had them all except scarlet fever. Everybody did back then.
Where did you go to school?
I went to the Catholic school, St. Anthony's, here in Highland, which is no longer here.
What was a typical school day like?
Well, they wanted you to start the day by going to Mass and then start your classes. I didn't do that very often. My sister made it every day, and because she was there every day, I was usually in trouble because if my sister could go, why couldn't I? I never used to get up till she was leaving, so. But I did go sometimes. But I like to sleep.
How did you get to school?
Walked. We walked everywhere.
How far did you have to go to get to the school?
Well, about 2.5 blocks.
Did you have a favorite subject?
Yeah, I liked spelling and English. I liked diagramming sentences. I thought that was pretty cool.
What did you do at recess?
At recess, we went out in front of the church across the street. We played in front of St. Anthony's Church. At one time it was gravel, then finally they put concrete in. But that's where we played jacks or jumped rope. Or
Did you have books at home when you were a kid?
not unless we brought them home from school. Library books we could take.
Do you have any other memories you would like to share of school?
Not really. I liked school because when you went to school you were with your friends. I think mainly that's what most kids like.
What was the main street like when you were a kid?
Main Street was a dirt road, and in the spring they drove a tar truck around town, and it had sprays of tar all the way. They drove all over town and sprayed tar, and then it would run and puddle, and they'd put sand where you're supposed to cross the streets, but kids mostly didn't wear shoes in the summer. You had to save them for school, or Sunday. And we had a lot of tar on our feet. Use kerosene to wash it off.
What did people do for a living during the time you were growing up?
Well, but there were a lot of farm kids. I don't really know what everybody did. Nobody drove out of town then because not that many had cars. So I think it was mostly farming, or they worked for the village. Some of the men in town went out and helped on farms, and they usually walked to get there. My brother Jack walked out to about 2 miles every morning and every evening to help Delaney man milk cows. Millie and, you don't know them. Well, they lived out where Jerry Eggers lives. And he walked from Mom's house, he went through the back. Every morning and every night he walked to milk cows.
It's
And
quite
then
a hike.
that was a good hike, you bet. But that was the way kids, you did everything. For fun, we used to walk to Big Rock. I don't know how far that is, 2 or 3 miles at least. And then we'd walk down there and climb the rocks, walk back home, went in caves and all kinds of neat things.
Do you remember your first car?
My first, that wasn't until I got married, and we had a car, it was a Nash Rambler station wagon. In about 1955. The first year we were married, we didn't have a car.
Do you know what color it was?
Yeah, it was white.
Okay, Lisa.
When the Depression hit, how did it react to your family?
Well, I was born in 1931. The Depression hit in 29. So times were pretty tough. But we managed to make it through. We used to take a sled and go out to the lumberyard and get a gunny bag full of coal and pull that back with a sled so that we could stay warm. For $1 you could get a bag of coal. We huddled around the stove at night with blankets and our feet all around the... We managed to stay warm because I'm still alive and I'm 81. It was just, you always did what you had to do to make it.
Did it react other families in the area the same?
Yes, everybody was in the same boat, so nobody had anything very much. So there wasn't jealousy or competition like you have today. And people helped people. If you had something and another family didn't, they often shared. Even my mom shared potatoes with another family. And if she'd make a cake, she'd give half to Potts's folks. And it used to be neighbor helped neighbor very much.
What is your most
Vivid
vivid memory of the
depression.
Depression?
Well, you know, at the time that you're going through it, I was just a young kid. I didn't realize how severe it was. So looking back on it, I really have to admire my folks. Like I said, we studied with lamps. You had to go to the station, get kerosene to burn in that lamp, and I think that was about a quarter a gallon, but money was so tight that there were so many things that we take for granted today that they really had a hard time with. But it was just the way it was, and you made do with what you had.
Do you remember the day
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl
Was
Harbor
bombed.
was bombed?
Yes, I do. I remember all the excitement in the neighborhood. And by then we did have a little radio, and we could listen to the news. I listened to Roosevelt came on with his fireside chats and all that. Mm-hmm. The day would live on in infamy, like he said, and awful lot of young men from Highland left. Ahead of that, we had the CCC here. And when they would come to town on Saturday night, Highland was a pretty rowdy town. But they had to be back home by 9. So we had quite a few ladies from Highland who married those CC boys. At least a half a dozen that I can think of, including Helene Strom married Stanley. But of course that was years later, but that's how he got to Highland, was with the CCC. Quite a few girls met their husbands then. And then the war started, and all those guys went to the service, and that closed the camp down. That camp was out by your place, Courtney. Right on that corner where the no stop sign is. Courtney, when she was real small, always said, there's a stop sign when you come this way. Nobody ever stops. When she was real little, we were driving her home, and she was giving us a kind of, as we were going, who lived where and what. And she said, and now that's the no stop sign. Every time I see that stop sign, even yet, I remember Courtney, the no stop sign. But that's changed a lot of people's lives when that war hit. And that's when a lot of the women, and my mother, they went to work up at Badger Ordnance because they opened up that defense plant. Times got, it's terrible to say, but after the war, everybody had money, everybody had good living, people bought houses where they used to rent. It's terrible that it takes something like that to make times better, but that was the way it was.
Were you scared?
No, because it was far away. I didn't have, my family was too young, my dad was too old, so I didn't really feel the effects of the war. Not that war.
Did you have family members serve in World War II?
A few cousins, but they didn't go till the war was almost over, and they all came back, so we were lucky.
Do you have any memories of what things were like here during the time of World War II?
Yeah, there were not too many young men around. A lot of, by then I was a babysitting age, and I used to take care of kids. When the wives whose husbands were gone, they would get together on the weekends, and they would either play cards or they'd go uptown. And it was all women, but I did a lot of babysitting when I was in high school. And it was for those women who were alone.
What items were
Rationed.
rationed?
Meat, sugar, shoes. You were allowed 2 pairs of shoes a year. And you had to have a stamp to get them. But my brother Tom was born, and him being a baby, he was barefoot with just socks a lot. So we would get the extra stamps because we had a baby. So if a kid needed an extra pair of shoes, you could use the kids' stamps. And then they came out with shoes that the soles were made out of rope. And I had a lot of sandals that had rope soles. Kind of neat.
Who's up?
What did kids do to help the war effort?
Well, we saved our money. We bought stamps, and when you got enough saved up, you could get a war bond. We saved scrap metal and things like that.
How did you get the news of the war?
On the radio. And hearing the grown-ups talk.
Do you remember the day World War II ended?
Yes, that when the World War II ended, I was in Milwaukee on my summer vacation, and when the war ended, we went on the bus up to Wisconsin Avenue in downtown Milwaukee, and you've seen the pictures of the sailors hanging off the lampposts and the girls kissing and the confetti. Well, I saw that firsthand. It was a throng of people. We could only take a bus so far, and then we had to walk. And the roads in Milwaukee are wide, and they were wall-to-wall people. And they were selling noisemakers and crazy hats. It was kind of fun to be a part of that. Even yet, I see it on TV, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I was there.
Do you remember U.S. involvement in other wars?
Yes. My husband was in the Korean War, and then I had friends' sons who were in the Vietnam War, so they were more recent. Seems like we've been an awful lot of war.
Do you feel people were more patriotic while you were young?
I think so. When that war, World War I started, or II started, all the young men went and enlisted. Today, they work harder at getting out of going. But everybody went that time.
Do you remember the assassination of John F. Kennedy?
Yes, I do. I have a daughter, Kathy, who was a baby then. She's now 49. And I had to wash diapers, and I was hanging diapers outside, and I came in the house and heard it on the radio, or I suppose it was radio. I don't know if we had TV.
1963.
We probably had TV.
You probably did.
Yeah, I think. Black and white, yeah. And then a neighbor lady ran up, and she was a school teacher, Shirley Cake. Don't know if you remember them.
I need the name.
Yeah, anyway, she came running up, and the two of us watched, and then they announced that he was dead, so that was kind of a shock and sad. Like I said, I was hanging diapers. So everybody remembers what you were doing when you heard it.
How about landing on the moon? Did you hear about that much?
Yes. I was a waitress for Lawrence Melser. And we watched that down at the Butterfly, no, what was his?
Butterfly Bar.
It was the Butterfly. Down in the bar, we all watched the moon landing.
Do you have any memories of local events or celebrations while growing up in Highland?
4th of July was the big one. They blew so many firecrackers that, well, I was quite small, but you walked barefoot up Main Street. It was ankle deep with the debris from all the firecrackers. And that's pretty deep. And we would feel around in there and maybe find a few that didn't go off. And then you could, if the wick was gone, you could break them in half and light, and then they'd shoot the fire out. That was one of my memories of the 4th of July.
How did you get the local news or state world events?
We had a Highland Press when I was young, a newspaper, and that had all the local gossip and the news. It was a pretty nice little hometown paper. During the war, he had letters from the service boys. I think if you went to the Historical Society, you could see a few of the newspapers. They have some there.
Were there any snowstorms or ice storms that stick in your mind?
Yes. When I was real young, there was some, I think it was because I was younger, but the snow piles always seemed awfully deep. We used to walk on the, but they didn't truck any snow away then like they do today, so everything, wherever they plowed it, it stayed. And we would walk the top of the snow piles, going and coming from school. That was kind of fun. I was pretty skinny, so I didn't sink in. The heavier kids went into their knees. I could walk over the top. So that was kind of fun. But then the ice storm, I think Tom was 8, April 17. That must have been 68 maybe? No? Do you remember the ice storm that we had in April 8th of some year?
Yeah, I can vaguely remember it. I know there was a lot of people without power in Highland, and
Yeah.
they brought in the National Guard and to bring water, and I was small too,
Yeah.
but I remember all of that. So,
We didn't have any lights, no heat.
for weeks.
It was, and the tree limbs were so heavy, they were just cracking. You may have seen that on the news sometimes. They show the ice and the limbs are falling. The weight of the ice just snaps them off, and that's what, you could go outside, you could hear that all over town. It was noisy and kind of scary.
Well, they delivered groceries and things in the country by snowmobile, I know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was very serious.
Mm-hmm. It was.
And we've had a few, in these later years, we've had some big dumps of snow.
Mm-hmm.
But today they've got the equipment to move it.
Did you go skating or sledding while growing up?
I had a bad crush on my husband. When I was about 11, we used to go ice skating at the Bury Pond. You think you know where the Bury, down where the old brewery used to be, there used to be a pond. And that always froze and we ice skated there. And my husband would help me lace my skates up. He was not my husband then. But that's when I had a case on him. So I was only 10 or 11. And then on the pond, he used to come behind me and push me around real fast. That was lots of fun. How old are you kids? 13? Yeah.
About that age.
Yeah. Anyway, that was when I first knew I liked him. So, we did a lot of ice skating. Even there, they later had one up at the Catholic school, and all the kids used to have ice skates. It was fun.
What did you want to do
To be
to be when you grow up?
when you were growing up.
Well, I never intended to be anything. I just, when everybody graduated back then, if you didn't go on to school, you usually went to Madison and got a job. I got a job in a factory making plastic stuff for a toothbrush. The case that they put a toothbrush in, I made the cap that went over the stupid job, but it was a job. And then I left Madison, I went to Rockford and I worked down there. And down there I worked in a factory and I ran a blueprint machine where all the engineers would draw their blueprints and I would run them through and make a copy for them. That was kind of a neat job.
What did you do after you finished school?
Went to Madison and got a job.
That's basically it.
Yeah, but that's what everybody did then. And almost everybody went to Madison. And when you went shopping, you always ran into Highland people. It was like going downtown here. You just always saw somebody you knew. It was kind of nice.
Who did you marry?
I married Paul Yanna. And he was the guy that I had the crush on at the ice skating pond.
How did you meet?
Well, we grew up across the street from each other. So we knew each other all our life. Neighbor kids.
Where did you live after you got married?
We lived in the veterans' houses across the street for 6 years. And then we bought this house, and I've lived here for 52 years.
What jobs did you have as an adult?
Well, I worked factories. I did work up at Badger Ordnance, and that was right before I got married. And then I didn't work at all for pretty near 20 years. Then I was too busy having kids. I had 7 kids. But then I went to work when I was 46 down at Advanced Transformer in Boscobel. And I worked there for 17 years, and then I retired when I turned 62.
How did you get involved in the community as an adult?
I never did a whole lot. I was busy with my family. That kept me pretty busy.
As an adult, did you ever travel?
My husband and I took a few vacations.
What was like your favorite place that you went on
The
vacation?
Yellowstone Park wasn't very nice. Mount Rushmore. That was all in the same trip, so that was the best one. We had several trips way up north. And we did the Great River Road trip one year. That was a nice. We spent about 5-6 days doing that.
So you meant you took the river roads all the way up around the river, you followed it?
it's called the Great River Road.
Oh, it is?
Yes, and you
Oh.
go to Prairie du Chien, and you drive the river all the way up. We went across, we went over across the bridge at Duluth, and we came back. Then we went across the top of the state, and then came back down, like, where's that big fish? Hayward. And we just stopped when we wanted, and that was a real scenic, pretty, nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
You and Jerry ought to do that sometime.
Well, we take the river from like Muscadet all the way up to Alma twice a year.
Oh, so that's sort of the same.
Yeah, we go
Yeah,
in 2
yeah.
weeks. We go again for another week, and
Yeah.
then we do it again in May.
But
we
do you
it
go
twice
the
a year.
edge of the state like we did?
We just go up as far as Alma
Oh, okay, yeah,
on the other
Yeah.
side of La Crosse.
yeah,
And we fish up there for the week, and then we come back.
Yeah.
And bring the road back down.
yeah. It's just beautiful up
Oh, it is.
north, yeah.
It's gorgeous.
What kind of hobbies did you have as an adult?
Well, I crochet, I knit, I sew. I guess that keeps me busy if I want to be busy.
What are the major changes you've seen in the world? What are the major changes you've seen in the world?
The major changes, well, I think right in our town of Highland, the nice roads, the curb and gutters, everybody fixing up their houses, and way back they fixed them up, and then nowadays they've all redone them with vinyl. But all through the years our little town has really improved, and I think we could compete with some of the cities as far as what we have here. I wish we had a grocery store.
Do you have any advice for the younger generation?
Well, mainly stay true to yourself and don't be led astray by your friends, so-called friends, because you should have a mind of your own and don't be a follower.
Be a leader.
And I think that will keep you pretty much out of trouble.
Are there any other stories you would like to share with your life? About your life?
Well, I guess maybe that I had the 7 kids and I have 22 grandkids, 6 great-grandkids, and there they are. And she's got a new baby brother. So he's only about a month old, 3 weeks maybe. So I've had a very enjoyable, rich life. And I'd go back and just do it all the same. I had a good life. And I hope you could get to be 81 and say the same. I have no regrets.